We had a visitor, and he asked me, how did you rate wine? Well, I think rating is an American disease. You rate a Super Bowl. There's a winner and a loser. But in my world, you don't rate emotions. And wine is something that gives you emotions. Mm-hmm. You don't rate pleasure. When you make love to your wife, you don't say, honey, it was 87. I hope tomorrow we can make 95, okay?
Sit back and grab a glass. It's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are at an away game today, way up in the Napa Valley, about to have a conversation with Jean-Noel Fourmeaux, an old friend in the business. Hey, have a listen to a couple of shows I just released. One was with Zach Armin, and he is an importer of Armenian wines into America. It's an incredible story of a young man who wants to get into this business. Have a listen to that and give us a good review. If you don't have a good review, don't bother doing it. Please subscribe. That's how us podcasters keep our egos in check. We need the listeners, but not why we're here. Here to talk to Jean-Noel again, because it's been so long and it's so great to be here. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It has been a long time.
It's been a long time. And this is Chateau Potelle. And I was looking at our newsletter, and we had engaged each other in 1998. That was a long time ago.
Oh, no, I'm still very young.
Oh, yeah? I appreciate that because I agree with you. And we were, this, particularly the wine industry is so confused right now. And I love the story. I just love the fact that here you were, you came to America. Well, let's go over that for a minute. Your family's Bordelaise.
Yes.
And you were born in the wine trade.
Yes.
That's unusual, isn't it? For be in America to just pick up roots and leave to come to Napa?
Yeah, I think it's unusual, but my friends in France, even before I came to America, told me all the time that I was not completely French. I think France is fantastic. It's an absolutely great country, many traditions. But the French were, and probably are a little more, but less than before, a little narrow-minded. And I created my first business by accident when I was 21. And it was a success. And, in France, when I sold it, because I decided to come here, because I had been sent by the French government to spy, and I decided to come here, I told my dad when he said, why do you sell your business and you go away? I said, because in France, you need to be 60 years old to have a right to talk at the table.
Well, that's
30 and I have something to say. So I am lazy and I go to where I can do something at 30 and not being, check every 2 seconds. So it's a beautiful country, but it has so much tradition that sometimes it's difficult to go out of it, at least at my time. It was difficult to go out of this tradition, and I needed fresh air.
Has it changed at all, you think?
I would say my friends now say that it's not 60 years old to have a right to talk, but it's 50. It's 50. So yes, we made some progress.
Yeah, for him, he gets to speak, but
so it has been fantastic because when I came here in 72, first for the wine, then in 1980, I love that pioneer spirit that exists in America. I love the fact that you can, if you want. Mm-hmm. It's not our rules. Our rules, remember, I've been here now 44 years, so it's a long time, and America has changed as well as France has changed in 44 years. But at that time in France, it was, if you are not part of a system, you cannot really go. And I was born in the vineyard, but there were so many things that you had to do because your grandfather did it that way. Mm-hmm. And I respect my grandfather, but you have to go by the rule of the time.
Yeah.
So here, it was good for me because nobody gave a shit about my grandfather.
They never heard of your grandfather.
Yeah. So I moved.
Were you in the wine business before you left? What you sold, was it wine or was it something else?
No, I was official wine taster, but I was not, the business I created had nothing to do with wine, even
Really?
though I have some customer in wine.
Yeah.
But it was just an idea and it worked. So, but that's why also I wanted to sell it and come back into my roots, which was the wine, because I have never left the wine. It just that that business was just a crazy idea. It worked
You never look back, huh?
no.
Do you go back very often?
Yes, I love it. I love France. I think it's a beautiful country. People are absolutely delightful. It's interesting because when I arrived here in the United States in 1980, people were telling me, "Oh, France, you must be arrogant." And I say, "Have you been to Boston lately?" And but all these are pictures of things. But I take customers because, as you know, we sell our wines only to private people. We are not in stores or restaurants. So every year I take customers traveling with me in France, in South Africa, in Argentina. And when I take them to Bordeaux, they say, "Wow, we did not expect that." It's not the image, the idea we have of France. We have France a little more constrained, a little more, rigid. And no, it's not true at all. The people are generous, very hospitable. They want to share. Because our culture of wine is very different,
It is culture.
It is a culture for us. And it's not a rating, or it's not to try to have points to please this or that writer. It is because you open a bottle because you have a friend who just arrived, and what a best way to share a good bottle than with a friend. So it's a very different culture, and I love that culture. It's a culture we don't have here.
It's an interesting cultural divide. I'm jealous of the French culture. I would live in Paris if I could. And I'm jealous of the structure, the protection of the wine, the protection of the butter, protection of the cheese, the appellation control type idea. And it's always been that America, Napa, is the new world, and you can do, as you said, anything you want. You can come and try, and you can grow Zinfandel if you want in the Napa Valley and see if it works. And it's I guess it's always, the grass is always greener, on the other side when you look at it.
Yeah, so in France, definitely there are some constraints. It's interesting because just a few minutes ago, I was talking with some customers, club members who are visiting, but they were in Burgundy in October. They made a bike trip. And they told me, "Gee, I did not realize that in France you cannot buy grapes." I said, "No, do you know why?" But I understood that it was to protect the terroir. I say, "Yes, it's to protect where the wine comes from." So that when you buy a bottle of Pouligny Montrachet Les Pucelles, you know that it's coming from there. When you buy a bottle of Léoville Poiferré from Saint-Julien in Bordeaux, they don't buy grapes, they cannot buy grapes. Therefore, if they have a bad year, they will make less wine, but they cannot buy grapes to compensate. Here, you buy grapes, you melt that, and finally, that's misleading to the consumer because it's still the same label, let's say called Cabernet Sauvignon, but it can be 25% of Cabernet from the Central Coast or any other appellation, or it can be just because you have more business and you want to increase, you blend something that is no longer your identity. That's why all the wines of Chateau Potelle are vineyard designated. We don't blend anything else than that vineyard, and if the year is bad, too bad. But we are not buying grapes, we are not blending, because I want people to trust what the product that we deliver year after year. And some years, they are not as great than the year before. That's the beauty of nature and the beauty of wine.
Do you think that's I'm glad you brought that up. It's an important part of the difference of the industry between countries, mostly old world versus new world. But that for the consumer, it is a little misleading because, like I just learned that the Medoc classification, 1855, is classified the chateau, not the vineyard. And then the classification of Saint-Emilion is the ground as well. And so it seemed a little misleading that that a chateau like Lagrange or something could go buy grapes from anywhere down the street and put it in their blend and still
But
call
they
it
cannot.
Grudge.
They cannot.
They can't.
No, because that's the classification. The classification of 1885 was made on reputation of the wine at the time,
Right.
and price, thinking that price was following reputation. But you cannot buy grapes in Bordeaux. None of the chateau, my family chateau, we cannot buy grapes. It's still illegal to buy
Yeah,
grapes.
you're right. Okay.
So
what I'm thinking is that it could be a vineyard you own, but down.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So it's still, if you produce a Léoville Poiferré, a Chateau Margaux, a Mouton Rothschild, you produce that from what you own,
Right.
not what you buy.
Yes. Okay. That's interesting. So I wondered because, America, we're not culturally attuned to wine. Have you seen a shift in that since you've been here for 44 years and you're right on Highway 29 and you see the traffic, you see the consumer traffic and the tourism? Has there been a shift to appreciate finer wines?
So
Or is this too slow?
I think in America, but evolution of taste is always slow.
Yeah.
And because many of my customers or customers your age, what do they drink in college? Lancers Rosé. The younger generation drink more the white Zinfandel.
Yes.
And this is great because the more you drink, the more you know what you are going to like.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that in order to understand wine and your taste, you need to drink. And you drink diversity. Because if you are mono vintage or mono cepage, mono varietal, you don't know. It's like staying in California and not traveling to Tennessee. Other people are still American, but they are goddamn different.
That's true.
Because the story, the tradition, the food, the hospitality, all these things are different. Yet they are still American. But you need to travel to understand the differences. Or you need to taste more different wines in order to understand the beauty, the panache of a wine, that you have so many differences, and that a Cabernet is not a Cabernet. It's a Cabernet from Chateau Potelle. It's a Cabernet from Fourmeauz. It's a Cabernet from that, because technically what we have to do is respect the birthplace. Where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that what makes us individual richer is that we have a birthplace. And again, the people of Tennessee are so damn different.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, you say in America, a girl, you can take a girl out of the South, but you cannot take the South out of a girl.
Which is a good thing, I think.
Okay? I think it's a good thing. But that's what terroir is about.
Yes.
And that's why I've been 43 years now, because last year, 2023, we celebrated our 40th vintage, 40.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Congratulations.
Same owner, same
That's
winemaker,
amazing.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I am a Mount Videur guy. All our wines are coming from Mount Videur. They are estate designation from Mount Videur, each parcel. And I'm not buying grapes to blend to that because I'm producing not a Napa Valley, I'm producing a Mount Videur in Napa Valley.
Was that your philosophy when you came here? Now, you came from Bordeaux, so you understood that was a very important part of our wine trade. But you go to the supermarket today, and there's none of that, right? Nothing in the supermarket is designated the way you're talking about. Some things are, but they're very mono. The palette is very monolithic. It's just kind of up and down of a supermarket. It's the same. Doesn't matter what the brand is. It's got the same. And have you felt that impact at Chateau Potelle, or your customers are driven by your brands? You don't sell to restaurants, which is very interesting. You don't sell retail. It's all club. That's the fascinating thing. So you probably haven't felt this downturn.
So culturally, wine is not American.
Yeah, no.
Okay? It's a choice. Then wine became fashionable in America, which means I can tell you a funny story that I am invited by one of our customers who is an extremely successful person, billionaire, because for the warming house. And when I arrived, This is a person that buys around $10,000 of wine from us here. And when I arrived in the new house, he had a wall 15 meters long for the wine cellar. And I can see cases, wooden cases of X wine here, big names, $1,500 a bottle, then this other brand, this other brand, and, vintage after vintage. And I look at him and say, where is your VGS? And he said, oh, no, your stuff is good. I drink it. And I said, but have you tasted these wines? No. I said, let's open it. I know you are going to break my case.
Oh.
And finally, my biggest pride at Potelle is after 43 years here, I have no wine on eBay. But you can find all these wines on eBay.
Really?
Because they are glamorous wine that people buy, $1,500
that's
bottle and things like that.
What an interesting thought.
And this is the wine that you can buy on auction.
Yeah.
You can go to this weekend auction on Art Davis and Art, and you are going to find Screaming Eagle, Arland, Bon, all these wines that are prestigious wines, but nobody buy to drink.
That's an interesting thought.
And me, I don't do that. I tell my customer, I open a bottle of wine.
Right.
A bottle of wine is for drinking, whatever it's an Aubryon at $600 or Margaux at $1,500. It's for drinking.
Yes.
It's not for ego.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, is that a lot of wine has been purchased for status and ego.
Do you think the French did that?
No, we drink too much.
I mean, the other night, I'll admit, first of all, when I sold the company, and because of COVID, we were doing incredibly well. I was buying all kinds of stuff because they would buy whatever I told them to buy. And so I snuck in some Cheval Blanc and some Marc Angelus and stuff like that. And so the buyer didn't want any of it. He just wanted my stuff that I sold for $12 to $15, and I ended up with 2,500 bottles of classified growth Bordeaux and some Grand Cru Burgundy, etc. And I almost succumbed to that mentality. Because it's I built the cellar in the house. You can walk in, you can see the cellar, and I have it all displayed. And I tell myself, boy, if I open that, I won't have it anymore. And that's not a good mentality.
No.
It's a terrible mentality. So
no, because you need to enjoy that bottle.
That's right. Okay. What's the point of looking at it?
Absolutely. May have a different attitude. When my friends arrive at home, I tell them, go to the cellar, take what you want.
Oh, wow.
Knowing the fact that at my house, I only bring the wine that I consider ready to be drunk.
Yes.
So far we are drinking 1990s Bordeaux.
Wow. Beautiful.
You cannot took it 2010 because it's still in the warehouse aging. So, but I think, that's the freedom. It's open a bottle that, you are going to discover and you enjoy. And that's the thing that I think why Chateau Potelle customers are so loyal to our brand is because first, our wines are good. My motto is perfection without pretension. It's not, making your job good. It's normal that you make your job good. My job is to make wine, okay? I'm a perfectionist. I make every bottle of wine here comes with me blending it. And that's it. I mean, now
so
it's fun. Enjoy.
Where did all this, yes, the classification of 1855 created the 5 growths and blah, blah, blah. But even today, when I tasted at Inglenook, I tasted a $265 bottle of Rubicon. I tasted a $395 bottle of Catillard. And, and then when I opened this Cheval Blanc the other night for my wife's birthday, $1,000 worth retail. And my son-in-law says, do you really think that it's, 50 times better than 20 times better than a $50 wine or whatever? And I said, no, I think that'd be hard to justify that, a good quality $50 wine. But you can tell your friends you drank Cheval Blanc. So in between, that idea, how is that developed in France that, we're going to, because it can't cost that much more to make Cheval Blanc or Lafite or anything else than its neighbor, which is using barrels and pruning the vineyards the same way. Where does that pretension come from?
So I think, Paul, in our business, there is a huge aspect that is the cost of quality. You can go to Chanel in Paris or in New York or in San Francisco and buy a suit. It costs you $10,000 or something.
Whatever it is.
You go to Hong Kong and you buy a Chanel suit on the window, which is an imitation, but it looks exactly the same. But yet, when you take your sleeve upside down, and you look at the inside of a sleeve, it's not the same.
No.
Luxury is in the detail. And the detail are expensive. That's why a bottle of wine is expensive. Take an example. We do here at Chateau Potelle 3 Cabernets.
Mm-hmm.
The VGS Cabernet Mount Vida costs $215 a bottle. The Fourmeauz Red costs $375. It's the same bottle, okay? Except it's not the same
Grapes that are there.
it's not the same inside.
Same winemaker.
For example, in a ton of grapes, Cabernet, you could extract 160 gallons. The Fourmeauz, I extract 118 gallons.
Wow, 40% less.
Which means basically my ton of grapes is a third of the price already.
Yeah.
In the Cabernet VGS, we extract around 142 gallons. Still 22% less.
Yes,
okay?
it's still a lot.
What we do in Potelle 2, we extract around 152 gallons. So that's a cost of quality.
Yes.
Why is that? If you look at the berry of grapes, I want berry to be round, small, and uniform in terms of color. Sometimes because of the weather, you arrive at harvest and you have half a berry that has a brown, the skin is no longer red, it's brown because it got like you when you go to the beach and you have a sunburn.
Mm-hmm.
That part of a sunburn of the grape berry is no longer going to contribute of tannins and color, but is going to contribute in juice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not interested in juice.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested at the whole thing. The juice, if it has the tannin and the color who goes with it. Okay? That's why we have to make that drastic selection.
That takes time, energy, money.
It takes time, it's money, it's grapes that are delicious, by the way.
Yes.
Because we put them in our Potelle too, they are delicious.
Mm-hmm.
But when you want to go to the highest luxury product, there is no excuse. You have to be consistent in your parameters of quality. And therefore, for Fourmeauz Red, I'm using 118 gallons per ton.
Wow.
Big difference.
Yes.
So it starts there. It goes in the vineyard because you want your grapes to be completely balanced. At some years, it means that you need to do what we call green harvest, which means harvesting some fruit, letting down some fruit before the total veraison because you want the balance of the vine to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you. Sometimes you work too hard. You are tired. You have no longer the same energy and concentration and peace of mind. You want to give your vine that peace of mind, that energy to satisfy every berries on that vines. And that is not necessarily the case every year.
No.
Therefore, the job starts in the vineyard because I want every berry of a cluster to be there as good as the other guy so that it doesn't diminish the quality of the neighbor. So it's a lot of work.
Was this your founding philosophy? I mean, I'm going to shock you because I don't think it was unusual for the price. But in 1998, we sold that Zin for $9.99, and you could get extra at $8.99. Now that's a huge difference. I'm going to suggest that this is. I don't know what the current Zin sells for. What does it sell for?
100.
Okay, so I'm just guessing that's just a sign of the times and the cost of manufacturing and all the other things that go along with it. That was the retail.
But also at that time, it was Chateau Potelle Zinfandel. It was not the VGS Chateau Potelle. Now
Right.
all our
What-
wines are VGS.
Okay, tell me that story again, because I think it's important for the listeners to hear the difference. Because when I met you in 1995 or 1998, and we did that transaction, we wrote the story about you coming from Bordeaux and starting the vineyard in 275 acres, whatever it was.
Yeah. So
But this is not the same place.
no, and it's not the same philosophy. VGS for me. So first of all, the story of VGS. How did it arrive? The name Chateau Potelle, historically the name of the winery, is my 900 years old family chateau in France. The reason I selected that name is because, honestly, I did not want my name on a label. And because I thought it was representing my values and my French traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was arriving in a country that had no mentor. I was not an expat. I had absolutely no clue, except that I knew I was in Napa Valley making wine. But I was not expected by anybody. Nobody was there to
Greet you at the train
meet
station.
me at the train station and tell me, this is our country, this is how it works, you know?
Yes.
I had no credit card, I had no permit, I had no ID, I had nothing. When I rented the house, I had to pay 18 months cash up front. When I bought a car, I had to pay the car full in cash because I had no credit card and no
Yes.
checkbook, and they did not believe me, you know? So I needed,
Wow.
and I had no credit reference. So I started on the tough way. So I figured I took that name because it was my values, my tradition. Then one day at the winery, we had a visitor, and he asked me, he said, when you are official wine tester for French government, how did you rate wine? Well, I think rating is an American disease.
Mm-hmm.
You rate a Super Bowl. There's a winner and a loser. It's
Yeah.
easy.
Right.
But in my world, you don't rate emotions. And wine is something that gives you emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't rate pleasure.
Great.
As
That's
I
a good
told
point.
one day to a
That's a great point.
wine writer, when you make love to your wife, you don't say, honey, it was 87. I hope tomorrow we can make 95, okay? It's not like that it works, okay? we have some days we are better and do better.
Yeah, right.
So I look at the guy, I did not want to say, and finally I said, good shit, bad shit. And he said, but this is very good shit. I say, oh, no problem, whatever. I go to sleep. And the day after, we had 3 times more visitors at the tasting room. So I go to see, and I ask the people, I say, oh, what are you doing here? Why so many people? And one guy looked at me and said, we heard it was very good shit, we want some. So then I decided,
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I decided to change the name of the winery
To good shit.
to Chateau Potelle, my French values and tradition, and add very VGS, very good shit, my American
Oh,
education.
come on.
Yeah. So that's the way it was.
Now
and
that is hilarious.
and that became basically a switch in our production
Yes.
and in our wines, so that the wines that were wearing the very good shit label
Yes.
had to be the top quality.
Yes.
When we met the first time, we're doing some VGS for Chardonnay and Cabernet. We're still doing some of the other wines that were not on VGS label. Now everything is on VGS label.
So the Chateau Potelle label no longer exists.
The VGS
Which was
Chateau Potelle.
Which was a great label. I remember
Yeah.
the Chateau.
Great, beautiful label, but now the label is VGS Chateau Potelle.
That is a fascinating story. And so you mentioned before we started that I said, is this the same 276 acres that you started with? And you said no, because you fell ill at some point and you needed to liquidate everything. And how stressful was that to you to take all of this effort, starting with landing here and no one to pick you up at the train station, to selling off everything you had to hopefully survive at that point?
But I was dying. But,
Yes, you were dying.
I was not even hopefully dying, leaving, because the doctor say, put your things in order. So I just did not want my children to face, because they were still, in their early 20s. So I did not want them to confront that difficult world. At that time, we were 50% partner in a winery in Argentina. We had a winery in Paso Robles. We had Chateau Potelle. So I decided to sell everything, but the name. Because the name Chateau Potelle is my 900-year-old family chateau, and I did not want anybody to take that. So I sold everything, went through that was at my second cancer. It was in 2007. And then in 2009, I had my third cancer. And then I was proposed to follow an experiment. And that experiment, for me, saved my life.
Amazing.
So I am now exhausted physically, psychologically, emotionally, because 7 years of treatment is exhausting. But I was alive. And when I went back on track and I was happy and good again, I said, what do I do with my life? The only thing I know is wine.
Yeah.
So I restarted again, basically in 2000. I bought this building in 2012. To recreate completely the experience of Chateau Potelle, back to the vineyards, so that I'm still on Mount Videur, and basically now we are here and there.
Did you go back to who you sold to and say, hey, I want to buy it back, maybe?
No, because it's a big company.
Oh, big company then?
I see them on a regular basis, and I say, I buy you for half the price you bought me.
Yeah.
We did not work.
That's not very French. Well, that's very French of what you did, but it's not very American. That's an amazing story because it's almost impossible to express the stress you must have been going through, the anxiety, the unknown, and here you are with an experimental drug, not understanding what the ramifications are going to be. Your life's in disarray, and to come back and produce a brand like VGS, which I can't wait to tell the story. And as successful as it now, it basically regen the whole thing all over again. That is, I don't care what industry you're in, that is not easy to do.
No, but it's good. It's good, first of all, because it shows that as long as you have life, you can do a lot of things.
Yep.
It's also good because it allowed me to change the standards of a winery.
Interesting. Shift it without having to shift it. Yeah.
Yes. And that's where I decided to come 100% direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Because I love Americans and I hate the point system. Not because I don't like points. I don't give a shit, really.
Whatever, yeah.
But because every American has a taste and the point system kills the taste. And I tell my customer all the time, you're celebrating your 30th anniversary. You open a great bottle of wine. The wine is fantastic because it's a moment of joy. 3 months later, your wife tells you she divorced and you have the same bottle of wine. Do you think it tastes the same? So
I use an example like that, but that's much more dramatic. I like it.
So is it really the wine that should be 98 or is it your mood?
Yes.
Because you cannot have a good bottle of wine if you are in a 62 mood. 62 points mood.
That's right.
You can only enjoy a good bottle if you are in a good mood. Because no wine tastes good when you are in bad mood.
I can't tell you how many times in the 35 years that somebody came from Europe, they were sitting at the Parthenon or the Colosseum having a glass of wine. They get the wine from the waiter. They call me. Can you get this? I get it for them, same vintage, same brand. And they call me back and say, it didn't taste the same. I said, that's because you're home and your kids are pulling on your shirt tails and you're having just a fight with your husband and you're not on vacation in Italy. That's just the way it is. And that's a really good point. I like your example better. I'm going to use that one.
No, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And we are species of emotion. The basic different culture between French and American is that in America, people are raised to be successful and make money. They are not raised to have fun and enjoy.
That's true.
Okay. Therefore,
that's interesting.
They are tense towards making money instead of being quote unquote tense, enjoying a nice bottle of wine.
Right.
Me, I tell my customer, you work to make money. Me, I work to spend it. Mm-hmm. And in that, you have a difference of culture.
That's true.
My culture is about enjoying life. Yes, you need to make money. but enjoying it, because every day is a new day. Every day can bring shit or beauty. Every bottle of wine deserves to be opened and to be cherished and to be shared. And that were, to me, the point system killed the pleasure also, because it was too much American. So it comforted the American into that system of success. You buy a bottle because it's $400, $50, and you can show that to your friends.
That's it.
And naturally, when you have a dinner with friends and you start by saying it's 100 points from Robert Parker and $600, nobody has a brain anymore.
You're right.
Because the taste buds have been killed.
You're right.
You know? And that's not what wine is about. Wine is about saying, this is wine. It doesn't need to be talked about.
The largest transaction of my career was a piece of real estate in Southern California. I won't bore you with the details, but it got to the point where I told the developer, if you close on this like you promised, I will give you 2 bottles of DRC Latage. And he closed. It wasn't even his money. It was Asian money. The next day, he was at my office. He took those 2 DRCs. He put them in his cellar. He's got one of those biometric cellars. You put your thumb on the door and the door opens. And the next day, he had dinner at his house. He took people to the cellar to show them the cellar, and he was offered like $17,000 or $18,000 for the 2 bottles, and that made him very proud. He goes, I couldn't sell them; they were a gift. But that's exactly what you're talking about. It was more about the prestige of the wine than, the pleasure of the wine, right? And that's an amazing.
What counts is I have, when you are a winery owner, you entertain a lot, and I have people coming to my house, and I say, okay, what do we drink now? And I open a 1999 Shiraz from Australia, or I open a 1948 port.
Wow, yes.
And these are memories for everybody.
That's right.
Including for me, as a matter of fact, okay?
Yeah.
Because I have that bottle of wine, and you enjoy it with friends, you share it. And you created memories for all the friends around the table. And to me, that's what wine is about.
There's nothing else like that, though, is there?
No, you don't. Because a piece of art is made to be admired. Wine is a piece of art, which means to be shared.
Yes.
So it's a very different thing. You can drink the damn thing, and you are going to pee the damn thing too.
Yeah.
A piece of art, you are going to keep it and admire.
Look at it and sell it.
But the wine would be a memory.
Yes.
I still these friends coming to a house, or I go to their place, and they talk about this 1947 port,
of course.
48 port. But that's the beauty of wine.
That's the beauty of wine. And I've never been able to articulate, it's a grape. And I was having this conversation today at Inglenook. We can discuss the tap roots and the micronutrient exchange and all that, but that explains how it happens. It doesn't explain why wine does what you're just saying. Why does it create these memories? Why is it a conversation? 20 years later, I opened this 48 port with Jean-Noel, and it was unbelievable. Why does that happen? I'm not looking for an answer.
But it happens because you have people like me today who are making wine with passion. And we're not making wine for today. I'm making wine for the person who is going to drink it in 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I tell you, my biggest pride is I can show you email that I receive every day, or pictures I receive from customers saying, I am drinking the VGS Cabernet 1999, best 99 I have had.
Is that rewarding?
Or the other day, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
The other day, the day after Christmas, I received that email from a very good customer who lost his cellar during the fire, Palisade down there.
Wow.
And he said, my wine group, 10 people, we have been drinking wine for 800 years if we put the age together.
Yeah.
Okay? And we love wine. We travel for wine. At Christmas, everybody brought a bottle. All expensive, all very good. Yet, he said, you would be interested to know that the wine that people have talked the most that night was the VGS Cabernet.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's beautiful.
But that's why I make wine.
Yes.
Is because I want my customer, and I think they know that my customer know that I will never make a bottle of wine that I will not drink myself. Okay? it has to be good.
Yes.
Otherwise, it goes to the sink.
Right.
So that's why you have this wine that are memorable. It's because they did something for you at the moment you drink it.
I suppose it's tied to the memory. You can't forget it, but it also has to have memory triggering character about it, which means it has to be made honestly. It has to represent a sense of place and time. It can't be a mundane, let's just be honest about some of the wines that come out of Napa these days. It's just a monolith, fruit bomb with some acid on the end, and it doesn't express anything except red wine. And I think that has a lot to do with the difference between the VGS wine and what might come out of Napa. So we're almost out of time. So I want to go through this because you've been kind enough to make this wonderful plate of paired hors d'oeuvres with some wines. But I have two Chardonnays in front of me. One of them is the VGS and one of them is the Fourmeauz. So what is the Fourmeauz brand?
They are made very differently. It's because I wanted to make a very different Chardonnay than the VGS. I wanted to make a more French, leaner style.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's leaner.
I had to change the vineyard because on Mount Videur, I cannot produce that. The wines are richer. And then instead of being partly barrel fermented, this wine is made 40% in concrete egg.
Really? Wow.
So it's a concrete tank that has the shape of an egg.
Yes, right. But it produces a different style.
30% is in stainless steel barrels of 60 gallons, and 30% is in new French oak.
Yeah, the oak is very subdued.
So the characteristic of the egg is that because of the shape of the egg, the wine breathes because it's concrete.
Mm-hmm.
But the shape of the egg makes that the lees are staying in suspension. And therefore it creates that lushness character that normally comes from oak. But it has no oak in there.
No vanilla.
Then no vanilla. Then you have a stainless steel barrel that keep the wine very grapefruity. And then you have the French oak that gives the charm and the complexity. And this is the way I make the Fourmeauz. So it's a wine that is only 30% barrel fermented. And the nose almost expresses every one of those methods. It's pretty interesting. It's beautiful. Huh?
Yes.
And it's a little leaner. It doesn't jump to you like that. Yeah, but when you take it in your mouth, it's still a very full and rich wine.
It's full, but it's still leaner, and it is more French, Burgundy-like.
That's what
but it's not Burgundy. We know this, right? It's got more opulence to it, but it's gorgeous structure to it.
And the opulence is coming because we are in California.
You're in California.
We are warmer.
Right.
We cannot do any of that. So I'm not trying to do a French wine. I am trying to do the best expression I can of a leaner Chardonnay that goes with also a very different type of food.
It's gorgeous.
As a VGS that you are tasting.
VGS now, this is your main brand.
The main brand, it is coming from Mount Videur. It is barrel fermented and fermented in stainless steel barrels. So it's basically today 75% French barrel and 25% stainless steel barrel.
That's interesting. I've never discussed a 66-gallon or 60-gallon stainless steel barrel.
So because before people would do that in tanks.
Right, the 1,500-gallon tank.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you what a smaller container gives, because in a smaller container, you have a lees. So you have a smaller amount of lees for, you have a smaller amount of wine. Therefore, it affects the richness, the lusciousness of a mouth. So you can see these two wines are completely different.
Totally different. We're kind enough to do this for me, and I really appreciate it. But I want to taste this with this Jerusalem artichoke velouté with poached Maine lobster in sunchoke crisps. This is a Jean-Noel special, eh?
No. The food here is coming from a restaurant in Napa, which is a friend of mine, called La Toque. And all our food is coming from La Toque. And we change the food basically every month, so people can come back. Ken Frank.
He's been on the show.
Oh yeah. So and so we change the food, and we every month, and we change also the food every time we change the wine that we are tasting. when people come to taste here at VGL Chateau Potelle, we have 4 wines that are the regimen. And then we welcome them with a rosé and a little piece of salmon. And we finish always by a wine that might be a Syrah, might be a Grenache Shiraz Counoise, might be the Fourmeaux. It depends of what during the conversation we have seen the customer orientation. So it might not be the same wine for everybody around the table.
But it's gorgeous. And how is Le Toc doing? I know that I sat with him during COVID, so it was a whole different experience. But has he rebounded from all this?
Yeah, La Toc, is one of the top restaurants of the valley.
Yeah.
It's definitely French cuisine. Ken is Ken and I guess we share the perfection without pretension thing. Yep. So the food is beautiful and the attitude is.
Well, he's part of the renaissance of American cuisine in Los Angeles, and he has a very firm opinion and passion about it, which was really refreshing to hear when I spoke with him. So we have to go back there. So we have the VGS Zin. So this is the post Chateau Potelle Zin, and you paired it with the pork rillé with the apple compote and garlic aioli and on sourdough. So how is this Zin different than the original Chateau Potelle?
First of all, Zinfandel. A Zinfandel cluster weighs around 4 pounds.
Really?
A Cabernet cluster weighs maximum a pound.
Really?
So, yes.
4 times? Is it because of the number of berries or because of the size?
Because it's a very big cluster with very big berries that are tied together. And on the top of that, it has what we call a shoulder, which is another shoulder growing grapes. So because the cluster is so big, Zinfandel had a tendency to ripen unevenly. So 1/3 is ripe, 1/3 is underripe, 1/3 is overripe. So basically, traditionally, winemakers let go their Zinfandel a little overripe to compensate for the underripe. I don't do that. We harvest our Zinfandel in 3 different times. Basically, between the first harvest of Zins and the third, we have 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks.
Wow, that's an interesting thought.
The idea is that I want to harvest only what is ready to be harvested, so that I do not have underripe and I do not have raisoning. Because raisoning creates a lot of alcohol, and then that sweeter character, jammy character, more like if you have eaten jam, which is, I'm not making jam, I'm making wine. So
very logical.
And I love to serve my Zin with fish, because I want to show to people that a beautiful wine is a beautiful wine. It's not an heavy Zin. It's, people call that a Bordeaux-like type of Zin, but it's a Zinfandel, so it's not Bordeaux, but it's a very elegant side. I wanted to promote Zinfandel from a second-class citizen to a first-class citizen.
Well, this structure is like no other. And so much of California Zinfandel, particularly from the Shenandoah Valley and other parts, the Sierra Nevadas, are just, they're good and they express the Zinfandel character, but they're huge.
Yeah.
This has very elegant structure for Zinfandel.
I don't like huge in anything.
Yeah.
I think when you are huge, you are missing the finesse. And for me, life is about finesse. It's about all the things that, if it is huge, would be hidden.
Right.
Because
good point.
You have the volatile character that you want to see, and you don't see when a wine is huge. That's why I think Napa Valley Cabernet has really very little interest. It's because the wines are made in a big way. No, they should be made to respect the terroir and to enhance the grapes, not to kill them by over maturity. And it's not made because people want to have a 98 points. Me, I don't give a shit about 98. My wine is very good shit, and that's the only rating we have. we don't have any other ratings than VGS, so that's fine.
I think we've established that you have very good shit here.
And my customers we sell only to private people.
Yes.
So if they come back every year, there is a
It
reason.
must be very good shit.
I have people that have been customer. I was on the phone with this morning with one that is 1987. Okay. We have club members here for 22 years.
Wow. That's extraordinary.
So there must be something
That's
attached to the
extraordinary.
quality of the wines,
So now we have the Chateau Potelle 2,
Yeah.
which is you're serving with the herb-crusted lamb loin on polenta and romesco sauce. Is this a blend?
Alors, Potelle 2 is a wine I love to make, and our customers love it because it's also the cheapest or least expensive of our wines. I think it's the same price as Zin, but it's a Cabernet base.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Cabernet.
It's pretty extractive.
It has Zinfandel. It has some Syrah.
Whoa, are you
And it has
crazy?
some Petit Syrah. And it has a little bit of Malbec.
Vous êtes fou.
Oui. And what I'm shooting with in the Potelle 2 is an extremely beautiful, volatile, childish, joyful character coming out of the wine.
It's seamless, really.
Yeah, it's seamless. I want a wine that you bring tonight to friends and it will go with whatever food they serve, barbecue, pizza, or fish. But I want also a wine that, it's a little bit like you arrive from work to home and the puppy is running to you, waving his tail, and, childish, joyful, that's the nose. But then you sit down with a glass of wine and the puppy comes to put his head on your lap and he made his presence felt.
Yes.
And I want the wine when it is in your mouth to make its presence felt.
It does do that.
It's Cabernet. So the blend changes every year, naturally.
It is very cuddly wine. It's very soft. It sits on the palate nicely. It's not rushing you through the wine.
No, because the Syrah and the Zinfandel make the wine also lively and aromatic, and the Syrah, so it's...
That's for the color, too.
It doesn't have the same tannin structure than a 100% Cabernet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of our favorite of club members because, as I say, you can bring that to anywhere and it's always welcome.
Beautiful. I'm supposed to have dinner later.
But
That's okay.
This is appetizer.
Oh my God.
It's just the amuse-gueule, we say in French too.
I'm so happy you reminded me of Ken Frank because we have to go back. We haven't been for a while. When he was on the show, we discussed mostly the 80s and the renaissance of food in America, in LA particularly. And he really wanted to talk about wine. So I promised him I'd come back and we'd discuss wine.
Because Ken is one of the chefs that knows wine.
And knows wine.
A lot of chefs don't know wine.
Yeah.
That's why they hire what they call wine directors.
Yes.
When Ken knows exactly his wine. He knows exactly, as a matter of fact, his wine and food pairing is one of the best that I know in the country. It's fantastic. And for that, La Toc is a great experience. So this is our Cabernet VGS. And our Cabernet is always a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. There is no Merlot into our Cabernet. The reason being that I don't find Merlot growing particularly well on Mount Videur because our vineyards are 2,400 feet elevation. And I don't find Merlot growing perfectly well as I find Petit Verdot and Malbec exploding of flavors. Petit Verdot, that can be a grape that is green and very tannic for us because of our exposure and we are cooler, so there is a longer time of maturing on the vines, is a grape that turns more floral with tannins that are very melted.
It would seem that Merlot on that side of the valley would be earlier ripening, probably more juice than acid, even though it's not an acidic grape. That it's not really an appropriate place for Merlot typically.
We tried and I was not happy, so we did not continue with Merlot.
So it's 4 of the 5 Bordeaux varietals.
Yeah.
At Chateau Potelle in Bordeaux, is it? What varietals were they growing there?
The 5.
The 5, you know?
Yeah.
This is gorgeous, and his pairing is amazing. This mushroom salad is really something.
Yes, so you are going to have a next one, which is the Fourmeauz red. Very different. It's made with 3 grapes only, with a lot of Petit Verdot. So this is a Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and up to 28% of Petit Verdot.
Wow.
And you are going to see it absolutely fabulous, very different. Naturally, we have to make a different wine than the VGS Cabernet. And
where's his nose coming from?
Oh, the noses.
It's not Petit Verdot, though, because that's not usually.
No, but the Petit Verdot plays there because Petit Verdot for us is very floral. Take an example, Paul. In 2023, I finished my harvest on Mount Videur on November 17.
November 17.
4 weeks after everybody
Wow.
in Napa Valley. Okay? Bon, I took a gamble and it paid. But that's what an owner winemaker does. He takes a gamble. A winemaker employee maybe cannot take the gamble. But, this wine is also extremely full, dense, but never heavy.
It's not heavy, but
no.
It's got layers.
It has layers, which is the beauty of a wine. It's like you and me and everybody. We have a personality, and we may have one trait of character, but we have a lot of layers that make us more complex individuals. And that's what you want to find in the wine. It's one thing, but a lot of different things. At the time you smell and the time you put in your mouth, it's a symphony. And the symphony, when you go to the symphony, you need time to respect the flute and the cello before the big drums comes. So that's what I want to have in the wine. And by the way, this wine, the Fourmeauz red, was a wine that was the most expensive wine sold at the Napa Valley Barrel Auction 3 years in a row.
Now, I'm going to tell my wife that she needs to respect my layers when she gets mad at me. Really. No, she's a great girl. But this is quite stupendous. What vintage is this particular bottle?
2019. 18,
Oh, it's
18, excuse me. 2018.
phenomenal.
That's what we serve here for
It's still
good customers
beautiful,
in
but
2018.
the concentration. Now, it's interesting because we talk about this Napa style that's evolved that people pour, and I happily opened 2 bottles the other night because I had leftover inventory, and they express nothing. They're well made, good balance, good structure, but they express nothing. And these are major brands coming out of here. And here you have a wine like this that when you taste it, you realize you've left and gone somewhere else.
Because to me, the beauty of a wine is not the attack in the mouth. It is the aftertaste. It's like you have a dinner with friends or some people that you don't know. And you have this person that you say, oh, he looks fantastic. I want to see him again. And the second time you see him again, oh, yeah. And the third time you say, no, not very
boring.
interesting, boring, okay? That's most of California for Napa Valley Cabernet. Me, I want to be the guy that you say, I need a little more time. I would like to see him a second time, but I know there is something there.
Yeah.
And then you discover and you grow. And that's, to me, what wine is about, is growing.
Are we changing this? We're going to wrap this up because we're already at an hour, but is that changing? Do you think that there's a movement away from this Napa style into expressing Rutherford, into expressing Mount Veeder, into expressing Oakville, into expressing, Calistoga? Is that movement happening?
Alors, you have a writer here in Napa Valley called Karine McNeil who made an article the other day saying that she tested 18 wines from one of the top consultants in Napa Valley and she couldn't make any difference of the 18 wines.
Really?
And I'm so glad somebody said it, because me, I can study, nobody give a shit.
Yeah.
But so it's important that we have somebody official that says it. We need a lot of people to say the same thing. Because realistically, what is Napa Valley today? A lot of rich people who don't know anything about wine. They put $50 million in the ground and they hire a top guy to say, give me a 98 so that I have a return of investment. So they make the wine to be a 98 because most of the press doesn't know anyway what they taste except something big.
Right.
And they are not touched by layers.
Right.
because they taste that in 2 seconds and then we move to something else.
Yeah, they've got 100 wines in front of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're not in the same business.
Yeah.
Me, I sell to customers who love wine, who discover wine. Some are young, some are older, but they have a passion. They have a passion for wine. And they have a passion for food, and they travel, their mind is open, and they discover new things. You know, think, I make a Syrah, fantastic Syrah. But then I have customers who travel and they say, you know, Jean-Noel, we went to Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the wines, the Syrah are different. Okay, so I make now a GSC, a Grenache Syrah Counoise. So the same.
GSC, that's interesting.
Okay.
Yes.
And because first of all, I love to make wine,
Yes.
and also because my customer, they make me grow and I make them grow.
Yes.
Okay, and that's why I decided to sell only to private people, because I have a reward of their text message.
Oh,
And
I think
things
that's
like that.
brilliant.
And we grow together.
I mean, in today's world, the fact that you avoid distributors and Young's and Southern and RNDC and Wine Warehouse, all the rest of them, and the consolidation and the book, you'll be in a book that thick, and unless you take the kid to Hawaii, you don't get any presents. I mean, you've done the right thing, and it's really great and fascinating to hear the change from when we first met in 1998 and we did business together to today, and your passion and your health, which is the most important.
Yeah.
It's really great to be here.
And you know, I love my thing. I have a fantastic team.
Yep.
Matthew has been with me 23 years, Tony 22, Eric that I hired as a winemaker to work with me, and Kale. When I restarted the business, I needed younger people so that I can train,
Yes.
because it takes a long time to train a winemaker. And we have fun. And we have fun because we make wine. Everybody here knows that they have to be perfection, but nobody takes pay is with their nose up. Arrogance is not part of our team here.
You know, my father passed away 2 years ago, and when I took over the company, he'll tell you I bought it for $1. And it's funny, I'll just tell you the quick story. When I started working with him, I worked with him all my life because I was the youngest child, and I was more like him. I was spirited, entrepreneurial, and so he took me to his meetings, etc. And one day after I worked with him for about 90 days, I packed the wine, I did the credit card charges, I tasted with him. We went to a Bordeaux tasting in LA, and we got separated in different rooms, and we tasted 25 Bordeaux. I don't remember the supplier. And when we got done, we had a 3-point scale. See, it was different than what we do today. Our 3-point scale was, if we gave it a 1, we couldn't use it because it was overpriced for what we've tasted. 2 was good price, good wine representation. And 3 was, if the price was a little lower, it would make more sense. And we were exactly the same on everything but 2 of them. Because I think you're ready to do this. And for me, it was business, maybe the first 10 or 15 years. How much wine can I sell? Let's make sure, of course, good product, wines like Chateau Potelle, Zinfandel. But then all of a sudden, the passion and the fascination of what a good glass of wine, an honest glass of wine means. And so that's what I've been chasing. And I thank him every day for pulling me into this industry, as difficult as it is. You said already, we had fun. It's fun to produce like this and to make people feel good.
Me, I don't work. Huh? I don't work.
It's hospitality. Yes, we know that.
And you have fantastic people who love to learn, who love to appreciate, who want to have fun and discover. And wine is about that. There is nothing else.
It's it.
And everybody has his own path of understanding and growing with wine. And you need to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing right and nothing wrong about wine. Everybody has their own path. And me, I try to accompany the path and to make them happy and make myself happy at the same time.
Well, congratulations to this date, 40 years later. It is so fun to be back and have a chat with you.
Yeah, fantastic. You need to come back more than 27 years.
We'll be here. Cheers.
I will be dead by then.